In the quiet town of Waco, Texas, in April 2005, the peace was shattered by a horrifying event. Inside the walls of Trinity Church, a gruesome scene unfolded that shocked the entire community. Beloved local priest Father Billy Ray McGee was found dead, crucified on a cross in the church. The investigation soon revealed an affair that no one saw coming. A scandalous relationship between a married woman, Emily Jo Harper, and the very priest who was supposed to guide her. But as the truth came to light, something far darker culminated in a murder that took place in the holiest of places. Emily Jo Harper was a woman who once had everything she thought she needed. At 38 years old, she was a devoted mother to two children, Katie and Dylan, ages 12 and 9. Emily's life seemed picture-perfect from the outside. She lived in a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood in Waco, Texas, a small town where everyone knew each other. Her husband, Jake Williamson, was a successful businessman who brought in a steady income, allowing Emily to stay at home and take care of the children. However, behind closed doors, Emily's life was not as fulfilling as it appeared. Jake had become more distant over the years, his long work hours and constant travel leaving Emily feeling more like a caretaker than a wife. She had tried to keep the marriage alive by cooking his favorite meals, planning family outings, and doing everything to maintain a warm household, but nothing worked. As the months passed, Emily found herself battling feelings of loneliness. She loved her children dearly, but something was missing. The void grew larger with every passing day, and she didn't know where to turn. In January 2003, Emily began attending Trinity Church regularly. She had always been a spiritual person, but it was during this time that she found herself seeking solace in her faith more than ever. The church, with its towering stained glass windows and the soft echoes of hymns during Mass, offered her a sense of peace that she couldn't find anywhere else. Father Billy Ray McGee, the well-respected figure in the community, had served the parish for over 15 years, offering guidance and counsel to anyone in need. His kindness and dedication to his congregation had earned him a place in the hearts of many, including Emily. Emily first approached Father Billy Ray after a Sunday service in late January, seeking advice on how to handle the growing distance between her and Jake. They spoke in his office inside the rectory, where Emily poured her heart out about her struggles at home. Father Billy Ray listened intently, offering her comfort through his calm and thoughtful words. He assured her that it was normal for marriages to go through rough patches and encouraged her to be patient and understanding with Jake. Emily left the meeting feeling lighter, as if she had finally found someone who understood what she was going through. Over the following months, Emily continued to seek counsel from Father Billy Ray. Their meetings became more frequent, though no one in the community thought much of it at the time. After all, Father Billy Ray was known for his deep compassion and willingness to help those in need. However, what began as spiritual guidance soon evolved into something deeper. By March 2004, their relationship had grown more intimate. Emily found herself drawn to Father Billy Ray not just because of his kind heart, but because he seemed to fill the emotional void in her life. He too found comfort in Emily's presence, despite the conflict it stirred within him. He had taken a vow of celibacy, but over time, he struggled to keep his emotions in check. By the time spring rolled around, the affair had begun in full force. They would meet in secret at the church, exchanging stolen moments in the rectory when no one else was around. They wrote passionate letters to each other, each one filled with confessions of love and desire. Both Emily and Father Billy Ray knew the consequences of their actions. She was a married woman, and he was a priest, but the emotional connection they shared was too powerful for either of them to resist. They had fallen deeply for each other, unable to turn back. As the months passed, the affair became increasingly dangerous. Emily felt trapped between two worlds, her life as a mother and wife at home, and the intense passion she shared with Father Billy Ray. She loved her children, but her feelings for the priest consumed her thoughts. Every time she kissed her husband or held her children, guilt gnawed at her, but the pull towards Father Billy Ray was impossible to deny. Father Billy Ray, too, was conflicted. As a priest, his duties were to serve his parish and uphold his vows, but his love for Emily had blurred the lines. He found himself struggling to maintain his composure during Mass, especially when he knew Emily was sitting in the pews watching him. He would spend hours in prayer, asking for strength, but the more he prayed, the weaker he felt. He had no one to confide in, no one who could understand the torment of loving a woman he could never truly be with. By July 2004, their secret was becoming harder to hide. Emily's behavior had changed. She avoided social gatherings with her friends, always finding an excuse to stay home. She stopped confiding in her close friend Emma, who had noticed Emily's withdrawal but didn't press her on it. At home, Jake sensed that something was wrong but attributed it to the pressures of motherhood and managing the household. He was too preoccupied with his career to look any deeper. Meanwhile, Father Billy Ray's erratic behavior raised suspicion in the parish. He was often seen leaving the church at odd hours, and his once passionate sermons had lost their spark. Parishioners began whispering among themselves, wondering what was happening to the man they had looked up to for so long, but no one dared question him directly. Unbeknownst to Emily and Father Billy Ray, the church's groundskeeper, Tommy Lee Johnson, had been watching them closely. Tommy Lee, a devout Catholic, had worked at Trinity Church for over a decade. He had always been quiet and unassuming, spending his days tending to the church's gardens and cleaning the grounds. However, in late 2004, Tommy Lee began noticing the secretive meetings between Emily and Father Billy Ray. At first, he dismissed them, thinking they were nothing more than counseling sessions. But as the months went on, Tommy Lee became suspicious. He had seen them exchange glances and, on more than one occasion, he had caught them entering the rectory together late at night. Tommy Lee was deeply troubled by what he suspected. As a man of faith, he believed in the sanctity of the priesthood and the importance of upholding moral values. He considered confronting Father Billy Ray, but ultimately decided against it. Instead, he kept his discovery to himself, hoping that whatever was happening would come to an end on its own. Little did he know the secrets he harbored would soon unravel, leading to consequences far beyond what he could have imagined. The morning of April 2, 2005, started like any other for the parishioners of Trinity Church. It was a Friday, and the early morning sun cast soft light through the stained glass windows, filling the church with a warm glow. The smell of incense still lingered from the previous evening service, and the church stood silent, a sanctuary of peace for the faithful. At 7 a.m., one of the regular parishioners, an elderly woman named Lucy May Carter, arrived to say her morning prayers, as she had done every Friday for years. Lucy May, in her late 70s, was a devoted member of the congregation known for her unwavering faith and commitment to the church. She moved slowly through the pews, clutching her rosary, her hands slightly trembling from age. As she approached the confessional booth, her usual spot for quiet reflection, something felt wrong. The stillness of the church was unnerving, and a metallic scent hung faintly in the air, almost unnoticed at first. It was only when she stepped closer that she saw it. The door to the confessional booth slightly ajar, something dark staining the carpet beneath. She hesitated for a moment, fear creeping into her heart, but curiosity pulled her closer. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw the lifeless body of Father Billy Ray McGee, crucified on the cross, blood pooling beneath him. He had been struck violently in the head with a large metal crucifix, a symbol that had hung in the church for years, now stained with his blood. Lucy May stumbled back, her mind struggling to process the horror before her. Without hesitation, she ran out of the church and alerted a passing neighbor who quickly called the police. Within minutes, the flashing lights of police cars lit up the quiet street outside Trinity Church, the sound of sirens breaking the morning silence. The news of Father Billy Ray's murder spread quickly, sending shock waves through the small town of Waco. A murder in their church, committed in such a brutal way, was unthinkable. The investigation into Father Billy Ray's murder began immediately with seasoned detective Catherine Pierce assigned to the case. Pierce, a woman in her early 40s, was known for her sharp mind and relentless pursuit of the truth. She had solved numerous difficult cases in the past, but this one felt different. It wasn't just the brutality of the murder that troubled her. It was the setting. The church, a place of sanctuary and peace, had become the scene of a gruesome crime. The first few days of the investigation focused on gathering evidence from the church. Forensics teams combed through the scene, collecting fingerprints, analyzing blood patterns, and photographing every inch of the confessional booth. The crucifix, which had been used to strike Father Billy Ray, was carefully bagged and taken to the lab for further analysis, but the evidence alone wasn't enough to point to a suspect. On April 4th, Sarah Quinn was brought in for questioning. Pierce had learned that Sarah, a married woman and regular parishioner, had been meeting with Father Billy Ray regularly for spiritual counseling. The detective suspected that Sarah's relationship with Father Billy Ray might have been more than just spiritual guidance. When asked about her relationship with the priest, Sarah initially denied any inappropriate involvement, but her nervousness was clear. Her hands trembled as she spoke, and she avoided eye contact, a clear sign to Pierce that she was hiding something. Over the next few days, the pressure mounted on Sarah. On April 10th, after hours of questioning, Sarah finally broke down and admitted to having an affair with Father Billy Ray. She revealed that their relationship had started over a year ago, born out of emotional need and the loneliness she felt in her marriage. However, despite her confession about the affair, Sarah maintained that she had nothing to do with Father Billy Ray's murder. She claimed that their last meeting had been days before his death, and she had no knowledge of what had happened to him in the church. With Sarah's confession, the investigation took a new direction. Detectives began looking into her husband, Jake Williamson. On the surface, Jake appeared to be a devoted husband and father, but Pierce learned that Jake had been growing suspicious of Sarah's behavior for months. Phone records revealed that in March, just weeks before the murder, Jake had hired a private investigator to follow Sarah. The investigator had gathered enough evidence to confirm the affair, and Jake had received the damning photos and text messages only days before Father Billy Ray's death. However, Jake had an alibi on the night of April 1st. The evening before Father Billy Ray was murdered, Jake had been on a business trip in Boston. Hotel records and phone calls confirmed his presence there, leaving the detectives questioning whether he could have orchestrated the murder or if someone else had acted in a fit of rage. The investigation took another dramatic turn on April 15th when Tommy Lee Johnson, the church's groundskeeper, was brought in for questioning. Pierce had learned that Tommy Lee, a devout Catholic, had been working at Trinity Church for over a decade. He had always been quiet and unassuming, but something about his behavior in the days following the murder raised suspicions. When questioned, Tommy Lee initially denied any involvement, but as the hours passed, his calm demeanor began to crack. He confessed to having watched Sarah and Father Billy Ray from afar, growing increasingly resentful of the priest for betraying his sacred vows. Tommy Lee had admired Father Billy Ray for years, seeing him as a man of great faith and moral integrity, but when he discovered the affair, that admiration turned to anger. Tommy Lee couldn't stand the thought of Father Billy Ray defiling the sanctity of the church and was consumed by his own twisted sense of justice. On the night of April 1st, Tommy Lee confronted Father Billy Ray in the church. The two men argued heatedly, and in a moment of uncontrollable rage, Tommy Lee grabbed the metal crucifix from the altar and struck Father Billy Ray with it, killing him instantly. The very object that symbolized faith and redemption became the instrument of his downfall. Tommy Lee's confession shocked the community even further. The man they had trusted to care for their beloved church had become the killer, driven by jealousy and rage. As Tommy Lee was taken into custody, the small town of Waco was left grappling with the weight of the scandal, the betrayal, and the violence that had unfolded in their most sacred place. The trial of Tommy Lee Johnson began on June 18, 2005, and it quickly became the talk of the entire town. Waco, Texas, was a place that had always prided itself on its strong sense of community and the quiet, peaceful lives of its residents, but now everything had changed. The trial brought a darkness to the town that no one could escape. The story of Father Billy Ray McGee's murder wasn't just about a crime. It was about betrayal, faith, and a deep sense of loss that left everyone questioning their beliefs. Tommy Lee Johnson, once a trusted groundskeeper and a quiet figure in the background of church life, now found himself at the center of a public spectacle in court. Tommy Lee appeared tired, worn down by the weight of what he had done. His life had once been simple, dedicated to the upkeep of the church and maintaining its gardens. He had taken pride in his work, believing that his efforts were a way to serve God and the community, but as the trial unfolded, a much more complicated side of Tommy Lee emerged. a man who had grown bitter and resentful, consumed by what he saw as Father Billy Ray's betrayal of the priesthood. The prosecution wasted no time in building their case against Tommy Lee. They portrayed him as a religious fanatic, someone who had become obsessed with the idea of purity and righteousness. They argued that Tommy Lee had taken it upon himself to punish Father Billy Ray for breaking his vows, and that his decision to use the metal crucifix as a murder weapon was a symbol of that twisted sense of justice. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the crime, describing how Tommy Lee had entered the church, confronted Father Billy Ray, and in a moment of uncontrollable rage, ended the priest's life. The defense, however, took a different approach. They argued that Tommy Lee had been driven to the edge not by fanaticism, but by the actions of Father Billy Ray and Sarah Quinn. They claimed that Tommy Lee had looked up to Father Billy Ray as a spiritual leader and had been deeply hurt when he discovered the affair. To Tommy Lee, the affair between Sarah and Father Billy Ray wasn't just a betrayal of the priest's vows. It was a betrayal of the entire community. The defense painted Tommy Lee as a man who had been broken by the weight of that betrayal, a man whose anger had boiled over in a single tragic moment. As the trial went on through the summer, the town of Waco became more divided. Some residents saw Tommy Lee as a villain, a man who had committed an unforgivable crime. Others, however, sympathized with him, believing that Father Billy Ray had brought his fate upon himself by breaking his vows and engaging in an affair with a married woman. The trial wasn't just about one man's guilt or innocence. It was about the moral fabric of the town and the sense of betrayal felt by everyone who had trusted Father Billy Ray. On September 10, 2005, after weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Tommy Lee Johnson was found guilty of second-degree murder. The sentence was 25 years in prison. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, the weight of the decision hanging over everyone present. Tommy Lee showed little emotion as he was led away, his once quiet life now shattered, with the next 2.5 decades to be spent behind bars for the Quinn family. The fallout of the trial was nothing short of catastrophic. What had once been a stable, if somewhat ordinary life, was shattered in the blink of an eye, leaving behind emotional wreckage that would never fully heal. Sarah and Michael's marriage, already strained by the weight of unspoken resentments and a growing emotional distance, crumbled under the intense pressure of public scandal. Michael had initially tried to stand by Sarah, perhaps out of a sense of duty or a desperate hope to salvage their family. He had been determined to protect their children from the ugly truth, to shield them from the gossip that spread like wildfire through Waco, but as the trial dragged on, it became clear that the shame of the affair and the shadow of the murder were too heavy for him to bear. Every whispered conversation in town, every sideways glance from neighbors was a reminder of the betrayal that had torn his world apart. By early 2006, the couple had filed for divorce, their once happy home now irreparably broken. The love that had once defined their relationship was replaced by bitterness and a lingering sense of loss for the life they could never get back. For Sarah, the consequences of her choices were even more profound. Haunted by the events that had unfolded, she could no longer bear to stay in Waco, a town where her name had become synonymous with scandal and tragedy. She left with her 2 children in tow, hoping to find solace in a new town, a fresh start where the past wouldn't follow her like a shadow. But no matter where she went, the memory of Father Billy Ray, once a man of God and the object of her forbidden love, loomed large in her mind. His death had shocked the town, but it had also shattered Sarah's sense of self. She couldn't escape the weight of her guilt, the knowledge that her actions had played a role in a series of events that led to his tragic end. The affair with Father Billy Ray, a man revered by the community and trusted by her family, had seemed like a brief respite from the monotony of her life, but it had spiraled into something far darker, something she could never have anticipated. In her new town, she was just another woman, another mother trying to rebuild a life for her children, but deep down, she knew she would always carry the burden of her past with her. People might not know her story there, but she would always be the woman who had fallen in love with a priest, a man whose death had destroyed her family and left an indelible mark on the town of Waco. The community, once tight-knit, had also been shaken to its core by the scandal. Gossip about Sarah and Father Billy Ray became the stuff of legend, passed down as a cautionary tale for years to come. Parents would warn their children about the dangers of secrets, and churches in the area doubled down on their messages of morality and restraint. But for Sarah, the whispers never stopped. Even in her new life, she could never completely rid herself of the reputation she had earned in Waco. The affair with Father Billy Ray was not just a stain on her marriage. It was a scar on her very identity. It's tragic, really, the way one choice can ripple outward, tearing apart lives in ways no one could have predicted. Sarah had been seeking something more, something beyond the confines of her mundane existence. But the price she paid was far greater than she ever imagined. The Quinn family, once whole, was now just another casualty of a scandal that had consumed their lives. Yet as devastating as their story was, it pales in comparison to the case of the wife who had fallen in love with her father-in-law, a tale of betrayal that left even deeper wounds. In the end, stories like these serve as a reminder of the fragile nature of trust, love, and the human heart. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on our daily updates. More stories of love, scandal, and heartbreak are just a click away.